This is episode 59 of the Construction Leading Edge podcast. My name is Todd DeWalt, and this podcast is brought to you by ConstructionLeadingEdge.com, where it's my job to help you grow your leadership skills, grow your business, and grow your income. This podcast episode is an interview with Mr. Mark Breslin, CEO of United Contractors, which is an industry trade association that works with top engineering construction companies across the western U.S. He has also written several books on the people side of construction, motivation, leadership, and business, specifically in the construction industry. And he travels across the country and speaks to and advises companies like MCOR, Phillips 66, Black & McDonald, Michaels Corp, and Bechtel. This guy knows what he's talking about. He's been in the business for several decades, and we talk about subjects including the notion that we need a well-led workforce, not just a skilled workforce. We talk about common mistakes contractors make with their frontline leaders in the field. We talk a lot about field level or frontline leadership in construction companies. We talk about how to calculate or how to think about the return on investment for dollars spent on your frontline leaders, what you can do to improve your frontline leaders, what characteristics you should look for when you're hiring or promoting field level leaders, and what are some innovative project owners doing these days to drive improvements when it comes to field leadership and productivity. We also talk about how to interview and find good leaders using interview techniques used by the FBI. And also, if you're an up-and-coming leader in your organization, Mark's got some great advice for you on how to move up the ranks in your company. Before we get into that interview with Mark, I want to share something with you. If you're like a lot of small business owners in construction, you'd like to learn how to make your construction business more profitable and improve cash flow. Maybe you wish you could stop worrying about your bank balance and making payroll and really start operating strategically. Maybe you want to work on your business instead of just working in it. Maybe you want to make the leap from running a crew to running a business. Maybe you wish you could be in a group with other construction business owners. You could ask them questions, bounce ideas off them, and get advice. Also, if you're like a lot of construction entrepreneurs, you'd like to get rid of the chaos in your business so you can get out of what I call firefighter mode. Well, if that's you, you're not alone. Listen, I hear from people all the time who are asking the same questions. A lot of people who are, whether it's in the first year of their business or the first decade of business, they ask a lot of the same questions. And I also know this because I grappled with the same problems when I owned a construction company. Well, I started this podcast back in 2014 to help people who own small construction businesses, and that's why I launched the Advanced Construction Leadership Community, or the ACLC for short. Now, the ACLC is an exclusive community just for construction business owners who want to take their operation to the next level. Make more profit, stop worrying about cash flow, get bigger contracts, eliminate chaos, grow the business. In other words, get to the next level. So as an ACLC member, you'll have exclusive access to training content. Well, I'll share everything I did to double a small construction company's revenue from about $4.5 million per year up to $10 million a year. Tripled profits. Grew the company from 20 to 50 employees. You'll learn how to maximize revenue, leverage your labor force, eliminate ticket starvation, grow your team leaders, eliminate chaos, build systems, hire and fire. You'll also learn just basic leadership blocking and tackling, things that you need to get to the next level with your business. As an ACLC member, you'll also be part of an interactive online community of other construction business owners where you can get answers to your problems, you can get advice, bounce those crazy ideas off other people from around the country who are doing the exact same thing as you, running a construction business. So if you own a small construction business and you're ready to get to the next level, head on over to constructionleadingedge.com/community to sign up. That's constructionleadingedge.com/community, or just go to my homepage, constructionleadingedge.com. Click on the button that says Take Your Business to the Next Level. Now, without further ado, let's get to that interview with Mark Breslin. All right, Mark Breslin of Breslin Strategies, welcome to the podcast. Thanks so much for being on the call. How are you this morning?
I'm very well. It's my pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. So let's just jump into it. Let's talk about the notion that there's a lot of talk in the industry these days that we need to improve our skilled workforce. We need we need more training for skilled workforce. That's the drum that a lot of people are beating on. But you say that is not entirely accurate, that we need a well-led workforce, not just a skilled workforce. Talk about that a little bit, if you would, please.
Sure. I think that everyone's looking for the path of least resistance, which is they look at their workforce and they think if these people had better skills, then I could be more productive. My company could do more work. My crew could be more effective. And unfortunately, that's not the case. Skilled workforce is actually not very useful if you don't have a well-led workforce. So the emphasis is on skills development instead of on leadership development, and we're paying a huge premium for that. There's a lot of companies that they spend an enormous amount of time on the churn factor, people coming in and going out, and they don't really recognize that a lot of that has to do with the quality and capacity of the people that they have placed into field leadership roles, and are not doing much to improve that.
So what, other than not doing much to improve their field leadership folks, what are some common mistakes that contractors are making, possibly even unknowingly, when it comes to their field level leadership?
I think if you use a safety analogy, there was a period of time when I was in the business where safety was not perceived as having any kind of ROI. It was in the way. It was a BS deal. It was a cultural norm that had not arrived yet. And so that cultural norm was old school. And I think that a lot of contractors, a lot of crews, in fact, almost the entire industry has not evolved culturally to view field leadership as a professional position. The average top foreman in most businesses, and I'm not talking about a mom and pop operation, but a significant business enterprise in our business will probably manage between $50 and $300 million worth of work over the course of their career. And yet there are zero expectations for professional preparation for those individuals. In fact, we're still at, chuck them in the pool and see if they can swim. I've trained probably 10,000, 15,000 foremen and superintendents so far, and 95% of them, that's how they arrived at that position without receiving any formal leadership and management training. And that's just mind-boggling, not to be too direct, but if any industry in America does a worse job of preparing its frontline leaders, except maybe the government, I don't know who it is. And I think I think that contractors they're just trying to take the easy way out and figure these guys will just figure it out on their own. And now that we're suffering from significant shortages of supervision because of the retirement of all the baby boomers, there is suddenly a huge awareness that you can't build your jobs and make money if you don't have good field leadership.
So what are some of the not so apparent side effects of having poor or poorly trained field leadership? What are some things that may be happening on job sites and in companies that contractors aren't really aware of?
Well, it's going to be all your primary metrics. If you take an individual and you chuck him in the pool while he's trying to figure out how to swim, a lot of other things are going to go wrong. So you're going to have quality issues, you're going to have callback issues, you're going to have retention issues, you're going to have an individual who's not capable of training, mentoring, or mirroring proper behaviors for others. You're going to be limited on your capacity because a contractor is only going to, they can only manage what they can manage in a risk-adverse environment. So if you have a series of people out there that are underprepared, they're not going to do the job for you. It's going to show up in safety. They're going to lose money, or they're certainly not going to meet the margins. And so it's literally in every form of operational efficiency that you're going to see it. I mean, our family business, I'm fourth generation construction. Here's the bottom line. You make money with your field leadership. You can have a good estimate. You can have a decent owner. You can get a good inspector. There's a million different things that you need to turn up to have a great job. But the person who makes your money is your frontline supervision. why would an industry not go all in on investing on the training side of making sure that those people are professional, efficient, and well prepared? And so I think people think, well, we always did it this way, and they'll invest in PM and above, but they won't invest in superintendent and below, and that's a huge blind spot.
How should a business owner think about the ROI on training and hiring good field level leaders? Are there any metrics out there, or just any general guidance you can provide on how to think about it? How big of a return on investment will they get on every dollar they spend in that area?
I'm assuming that every company has their own means of determining how and why they want to do that. I have clients who are, $30 million companies, and I have a bunch of clients who are billion-dollar companies, and the amount of resources that are available are very different. When you have a whole training department and you have sort of a vision, if you need 1,000 foremen, you're going to build an infrastructure that is very efficient because you can't just steal them from your competition and or put an ad in the paper. Conversely, I think we're at the beginning of the whole process of determining what that ROI looks like, because it really hasn't been done very much. The professionalization of field leadership, if you think about it, there's really no uniform certification. A real estate agent has to go out and get recertified every couple of years to sell some piece of crap, house, fixer-upper down on Fifth Street. But our guy, who's doing millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars worth of supervision, doesn't have to do anything. So I think before we can get to the ROI, we have to build the infrastructure that we can evaluate and then say, all right, here's where we were in 2016, here's where we are in 2020, here's where we are in 2025, and that's when you start seeing it show up, just like safety. Until we invested in the systems and resources and policies and people, you didn't really see too much. You can't just throw a bunch of safety equipment at people and say, hey, go out and build it safe. Just like you can't just tell people, hey, now here's some basic communication skills, here's some basic soft skills, here's some paperwork skills, and soon to be, here's some technological skills. So there's a bunch of things that are changing more rapidly than our field leaders are getting a hand in being more effective.
Yeah. Now, you bring up a really good point. The guy that cuts my hair had to go to school and get a license, and to your point, the guys and gals out in the field running multi-million-dollar projects, they don't have anything, informal or formal. So yeah, that when you think about it that way, sometimes being in an industry, your entire career is like being on a desert island, and then somebody comes in from the outside and they look around and think, what the hell are you guys doing? This is crazy. But it looks really normal to all of us that have been on the island. So I appreciate your perspective there. If somebody wants to start, let's say they're a small to medium-sized contractor, they've got some budget available for training, and they realize that their field-level leaders need to improve, what are a couple of areas that they need to really focus on? If they did an 80-20 analysis, where are they going to get the most bang for their buck on training their field-level leaders?
Boy, that's tough. It depends on what kind of business you're in. If you're a mechanical versus you're a roofer versus you're a interior system, you're a turbine turnaround company, you're going to have some different priorities. So the universal for everybody is going to be sort of the building blocks of leadership, which would be effective communication and in our business in particular, negotiating and dispute resolution. So we have a lot of conflict in our business. We have a lot of communication issues. Literally every problem that ever shows up on a job is usually a function of poor communication. Most field guys haven't had any, literally none. We do have a smattering of college graduates running work, but you have to figure that this is the first time that you would be asking somebody to engage in a formal learning process, outside of trade school or apprenticeship, possibly in 15, 20 years. So I think you got to start with the base. You got to start with communications. You got to start with motivational techniques. Talk to people about what's going on. But if I was going to put my money down as the beginning, and I know this might sound a little off the wall, but what I think the number one building block for effective leadership is self-awareness. Is until that individual has a better understanding of themselves, they're going to have a hell of a time having a better understanding of the people that are working for them. And there's a lot of ego in our business, and there's a lot of insecurity, and you mix those two together, and that can cause a lot of shit on your job. I mean, just to put it bluntly, is you got people who are unprepared. You shove them in the job. They don't want to look bad. They're trying their best. They're not getting any help at all. And now you're expecting them to be superstars. You're going to get a lot of interesting behavior out of that. And so I would say I would get them all to, if it's my company, I'd get them all to take the Myers-Briggs personality test. You can get that free online. And have them take the test and have them examine what their own predispositions are. I would have them all take the DISC test, the DISC personality indicator test. It's cheap, it's fast. What it helps them understand is that everybody's different, that they're different, that not everybody responds to life and the job site the way that they do, and that, maybe they have some different strengths than they thought they did and some weaknesses that they need to work on. If you just give people technical training, here's how to do paperwork and here's how to do scheduling software, and there's a bunch of stuff, document for claims, and those are all great and they're necessary in today's world. You can't build the work without those skills. But if you want leaders, if you want people who are going to get the most out of the rest of the crew, you're trying to leverage one superintendent to 20 guys and one foreman for 8 guys. That's a no-brainer. You have to get those individuals to look at themselves and say, what do I have to do to elevate my capacity to get more out of these people? And then that's your initial step. And I think a lot of contractors would jump over that and say, okay, well, Bobby needs this and Tommy needs that and Teresa needs this, and they start looking at the deficiencies, trying to fix them or deal with them, and I don't think that's the way to do it.
So to the person who's thinking about self-awareness, thinking, all right, well, if I've got this superintendent or foreman who's not self-aware, can people increase their self-awareness? Is it like height? Is it something you can't train or coach, or is it something that can be learned?
There's a great book that I would suggest to all your listeners by Dr. Carol Dweck, D-W-E-C-K, and it's called Mindset. And it's a fascinating book about the two fundamental mindsets that people bring to life. One is called the growth mindset, and the other is called the fixed mindset. So the growth mindset says, inherently when I look at myself, I believe I am capable of growth, of evolution, of change, and the ability to influence myself in a profound way. And as a result of that, because I see myself that way, I see everybody else that way, I see the world that way, and I operate that way. And those people tend to make pretty damn good leaders, and they are ripe for that experience that says, I'm going to give you some tools, go out there and use that growth mindset to grow yourself and grow the people around you. The other mindset is called the fixed mindset. The fixed mindset is the one that says, hey, Todd, I am who I am. So, you just got to, hey, that's just the way I am. I don't want to change. I'm good. And they build a perimeter wall around their perception of self. Well, what they do when they do that is they also do it around others. They think, well, if I'm good as I am, then Todd is who he is, and there's no reason to spend any energy on him. And so I think that question about are people capable, it starts with that mindset. It is how are people approaching themselves and the people around them. And you don't need to go any farther than your own parents to see the influence that the mindset can have on the people around you. If you ask yourself, well, do my parents have growth or fixed mindsets? That's exactly how it plays out in the workplace. So that'd be a good book. It's only about 140 pages, and I think a lot of people would get a lot out of that. And, it certainly changed my view of a lot of things particularly the way that I parented and the way that I led as a CEO.
Yeah, no, that is a great book. I've read that, and my wife's a third grade teacher, and it's sitting on her nightstand right now. She's reading it. I agree. That is, if from a parenting perspective, my advice to parents is if you focus on one thing, then develop a growth mindset in your kids. Because if you develop a fixed mindset in them, then you're basically building, like you said, you're building walls around them. So if you can do anything for your employees, develop a growth mindset in them and look at them that way. So you brought up a good point. One of the questions I wanted to ask is, what characteristics should somebody look for when hiring or promoting field leaders? Sounds like having a growth mindset is one of those characteristics. What are some other things that people could look for that are either, well, we won't talk about red flags, but what are the green flags? What are the good indicators that somebody could grow into a good field leader?
That's a great question. And so it's a little different. So I'm a baby boomer, and naturally, if we're looking to be growing our future superintendent and foreman population, they're going to be Gen X and predominantly millennials. And so what you're probably looking for in my generation was, we're just looking for the hardest worker. We were looking for the grinder, hardcore, get her done, push guy. And we don't really care about too much besides was, if Bobby can run that crew and push that work and make money, then we don't really care about anything else. Now today, it's a lot different. And I think if you're looking for millennials who are going to step to the plate, and I know a lot of them, I train, a few times a month. I'm out on the road training foreman superintendents, and it's really eye-opening to see, even though a lot of people crack on these younger people, there is some remarkable young talent out there. So first thing I think you're looking for is initiative. This is the individual who is not waiting to be told and not waiting for permission and is willing to push now. I taught a class this past Saturday of apprentices. See, these are people in their first 4 years. These are third-year apprentices, third-year carpenters from all over the South. And I asked them, how many of you are already running work? And out of 250 of them, about 30 of them raised their hand. So here you have individuals who are apprentices who have already been placed into supervisory roles. How do those contractors know? Initiative, willingness to take responsibility, sophistication, being able to understand the work at a level that exceeds their peers, profoundly beyond their peers, the courage to take on the field. A lot of people work with their friends, a lot of people work with their peers. They don't want the discomfort of holding people accountable, and it's the discomfort of leadership. A lot of people want the pickup, a lot of people want the gas card and the perks, but they don't necessarily want the more difficult components of it. And that is what you should be looking for. You want to look for somebody that their give a shit factor is high in terms of treating your money like theirs, and that their take no shit factor is high, where they say, hey, we might all be friends here, but you put me in charge, now I'm responsible for this job, and I'm going to be respected, and I'm going to do it in a professional and supportive way, but I'm going to make sure this job gets built. And it's personality plus what they bring to the job site. And then finally, there's a lot of people who are entering our industry now who've done other things. So there's guys out of the military, there's people out of other businesses where they've had the opportunity to lead. They might not understand construction intimately, but they've already got the bones of excellent leadership. And a lot of contractors don't ask about that. They look at the person as a craftsman. They don't know this underneath. These individuals bring tremendous additional leadership value. So you got to know your people.
Yeah, let's talk about that. That's a good point, because one of the solutions to our workforce and leadership deficit is to make it such that people from other industries can cross over. So you mentioned military, and I agree. I've had really good experience hiring former military folks. They just have the mindset, they have the initiative, the discipline, which is great. Are you seeing any other different industries where they're just primed properly for either leadership or the construction trades?
I wouldn't say direct across. I like the military the best just because of the structure, camaraderie, and teamwork. I haven't found too many other industries that resemble it. I've seen people coming across from manufacturing. You know, America has been on the decline in terms of industrial work. So a number of people who come out of traditional, hard-working, blue-collar enterprises are pretty good. But you know, construction's its own thing. It has its own rules, its own language, its own culture. So there's really, you just got to come in and see if you integrate and see if you like it. But I don't know any other industries that I think are quite a perfect fit.
Sure, that's been my experience as well. So 2 questions. I want to look at this from 2 different angles. One from the hiring manager's perspective and one from the candidate's perspective. But let's talk about from a hiring manager's perspective, what would be good indications on a resume? I know if you have somebody who's demonstrated some ability on a job site, they've taken some initiative, but let's say a hiring manager or business owner is looking at a candidate, they're looking at their application, their resume, what would they look for in that information, or what questions would they ask to try to dig up to look for that, the initiative, the courage, the give a shit factor being high and the take a shit factor being low, or take shit factor being low?
Boy, that's a tough question. Well, so we'll take the last question first. We'll talk about interview questions. So the most effective means of determining capability in an interview is what's called behavior-based interview. Now, I've been involved with a couple PhDs here working on a project to come up with the state-of-the-art screening and interview process for apprentices for the past 3 years. And it's a technology that's used by the FBI, the Secret Service, DOD, NBA, Morgan Stanley, and so I have the rights to use that in the construction industry. So we've done a lot of deep research on this. So I'll just, not to get heavy, but I'll just skim along the surface. Police and fire departments, when they are interviewing people, use this methodology called behavior-based interview. So you don't ask somebody, why do you want to be a foreman? What do you want? Where do you want to be in 5 years? All the stupid throwaway questions that people use in interviews. What it turns out is that past behavior is your greatest indicator of future behavior. So what you got to ask people is, all right, well, hey, Todd, if this happened, what would you do? And if you saw this, how would you handle it? And if these guys on your crew were doing this, how would you fix that? And if you're dealing with the owner, and what you do is you put people into situational analysis where they have to show you their judgment. You can't practice for it. You can't bullshit. You can't come up with some lame answer if you don't know what it is. And what you have to do is you have to put them under game conditions so they're able to articulate what their judgment is, not their knowledge, not their background, not their education. None of those things are going to be indicators or effective indicators of their capability of execution in the field or dealing with people problems. So what I would do in my business, sit down and say, what are the 10 things that come up all the time for my top foreman, and how do they handle it? How do they handle conflict? How do they handle a problem inspector? What do they do when they got, a crew that's behind and the job's losing money? And how would you motivate them? I'd come up with a bunch of scenarios, add those into the normal questions, and see what comes from it. So that's just, I could go on for an hour just about that, but I think that might be something that would be super helpful because a lot of people they come in, they talk to somebody for 25 minutes, and they're like, this seems like a nice guy. Yeah, I'll hire him. I'll see what happens. We're past that in this industry. That's a very, very expensive decision. You might as well put a little effort into it.
Yeah, agreed. That's great stuff. Great advice. Now let's look at it from the candidate's position. Let's say there's somebody listening who's got the drive. They want to step up into a leadership role, either with a new company or with the company they're currently with. What are a couple of pieces of advice that you would give to that person?
Okay, so let's talk about being inside an existing company, because if you're trying to grow yourself into a leader, it's more likely that you're going to get advanced inside of a company. So the first thing is you want to be clear that you have at least one, if not two, mentors within the company. You need an advocate. You need to be able to have people who are capable of articulating your capacity, so you don't have to do it by yourself. My kid went into a big pipeline outfit a few years ago as a junior PE, and I asked him, what are you going to do to get yourself ahead? He says, I'm going to know the name of every foreman and superintendent in this company within the first 6 months. I said, why is that? I knew what he was getting at. He said, not one of these other guys is going to spend the time building those relationships. They're going to go to work, they're going to do the work, and they're going to go home, and I'm going to blow past all of them, because it's those guys who are going to make the difference in my career. And now he's a project manager. He's getting recruited out left and right, because he understood that the people infrastructure is what collectively determines your advancement. Yeah, you got to do a good job, but what's the buzz about you? What are people saying about Todd? Todd's a great guy. Todd's a great guy. That's not enough. Todd, he comes through 100% on all his commitments. Todd, he's a huge asshole, but he's got some rough edges, but I think we can work on him. Like, people are talking about all of us all the time. So what you want is your reputation and your work to speak for you, and the other one is you got to communicate your desire. You have to make sure that people know that you want that opportunity, and not in an overt self-promoting way, but in a direct way that says, hey, boss, I would like to be the youngest foreman in the history of this company. I'd like to make superintendent. What do I got to do? What work do I have to do on myself to get myself into that position? I'm a PM and I want to go to an area manager. I need to know, what do I got to do so that the expectations are clear and that they're not guessing about it? And a lot of people are timid and they worry, if I go to the boss, what's he going to think? If I do that, are the people that I'm working for going to get pissed off because of the politics? And the answer is probably yes. But, that's the price of leadership. If you want to sit around and wait for somebody to tap you on the shoulder, you're probably going to wait longer than you would unless you project your ambitions and tell people, hey, I'm into it. I want to lead. Let's do this thing. And I meet a lot of people in my travels who that was the initial catalyst, including my own. I wasn't prepared to be a CEO, but I figured, look, this is the opportunity for me to test myself. And people just have to be, confident enough to confront their own insecurity and fear and say, yeah, I know this is going to be hard and I'm not sure I'm ready, but I'm going to really push myself and see if I can get this opportunity, and then, and then it's up to you. You find out real quick if you're suited for it.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. Great advice. Well, we're running out of time. I want to give people an opportunity to learn more about your company and how they can contact you. But one maybe lengthy question, one kind of quick hit question. The first lengthy question is, we mentioned safety earlier, that the culture has changed around safety in the last 20 or 30 years. What are some things that innovative project owners are doing right now to drive field level leadership? Are they, 20 years ago or 30 years ago, a lot of owners didn't really care about safety, but now owners do care about safety, and they're awarding contracts based on safety records and based on company culture and things like that. So are there project owners out there who are looking at field level leadership and mandating programs and requirements, things of that nature?
Yes, it's just starting now. So I have I have some oil and gas clients in both the U.S. and Canada, and they're at the point that says, you know what, we're just not going to take anybody into our facility to be the supervisor. So there's certification. They're looking at, you have to submit a site-specific productivity plan, a site-specific absentee management plan, a site-specific, value engineering plan. What they're doing is they're making the contractor think it through, so that they get the benefit of it, but the contractor improves his internal operational framework at the same time. And it is absolutely 100% the most brilliant thing ever, is that we're finally getting to how do we all succeed in a more effective manner. The people in the field want to do a good job. The supervisors want to run a great job. The contractors want to make money. The owners want a great project. Okay, great. What's some of the missing links? The missing links are engaging and involving the people at the field level. And I think owners are getting it. They've been dealing with processes and systems, whether it's integrated project management or, BIM or tech, they're looking at systems, because a lot of those people are engineers, so they always look for an engineering solution. This is not an engineering solution, this is a people solution. And so those owners are getting to a place where they're saying, hey, you know what? It took us a while to get safety dialed. Let's start working on this field management, productivity emphasis, and let's incentivize it by making it part of the bid package. And let's tell these contractors, you're going to have to think this through. You can't wing it anymore. And I think it's going to take us another 10 years. I'll probably have a walker by the time this gets done, but at least I will have known that I contributed a little bit to it.
I agree. I think not about the walker part, of course, but I think it's coming. Owners are getting deeper into projects and realizing, hey, it's in all of our best interest for me to prescribe these measures to help contractors help themselves, which in turn helps everybody. So that's interesting, very interesting. Last question before I give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about your company and how to get in touch with you. You mentioned one book, Mindset by Carolyn Dweck. Do you have any other books or resources that you would recommend folks go read if they're really interested in changing or preparing themselves for leadership and really getting to the next level?
Boy, I have a laundry list. So I'm a big fan of Blink by Malcolm Gladwell on intuitive decision making, figuring out how to use your intuition to make great decisions, and trusting it as much as people do logic and the rest of it. What Got You Here Won't Get You There by Marshall Goldsmith, the famous leadership coach to Fortune 500 companies. That's another great book, one that I really like a lot. So I'll have to think about that. Maybe I'll post something on my LinkedIn or my website with something. I didn't come prepared with my laundry list, but those are a couple that jump to mind.
Perfect. Thanks for sharing that. So to wrap it up, first of all, is there anything else that you'd want to share with an audience of construction business owners and leaders and up-and-coming leaders?
Yeah, I would. I would say, the fundamental change in our industry and the mindset shift that has to happen is, a contractor, or I ask a brand new apprentice, so what do you guys do? People say, well, we build things. That's our business model. Construction. Oh, you're in construction? What do you do? We build stuff. And that's not the model anymore. The model now is you build the people who build the stuff. And the sooner that people understand that the emphasis is not on the work, not on the schedule, not on the materials or the equipment or the financing or the bonding or all the components, that it's about the people who build the work, that's when the industry is going to revolutionize, and we're going to have exponential productivity growth, and contractors are going to make a ton more money. But they got to get to where they're willing to think about it that way every day and lead that way too.
Good stuff. Great statement. So if people want to connect with you, Mark, where can they do that? Whether it's on your website,
sure,
social media, etc.
So my website is www.breslin, my last name, breslin.biz. and that's probably the best place to find us. We're located out here in California. We do a bunch of training all over the U.S. and Canada. I didn't recommend my own books. I didn't want to do a Dr. Phil on you, but I did recently publish 5-Minute Foreman, which is a book being used all over the U.S. and Canada to train foremen and superintendents. Before that, I wrote Alpha Dog, Leading, Managing, and Motivating in the Construction Industry. So if your listeners liked what they heard on the podcast, they might be interested in those. And if they're interested in any kind of educational programming, we're all booked up for 17 and well into 18, but we do work with companies and owners and end users all over, and so certainly welcome to take calls from anybody who has questions and might be interested.
Very good. Well, I'll have links to your website and links to your books in the show notes, and I'll have that link to the show notes at the end of the podcast. Mark, really appreciate it. Great stuff. Great conversation. Thanks so much for sharing all of your experience and knowledge with us, and let me know.
Thank you very much. It's my privilege to be here for your listeners. Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed that interview. A lot of great content there. If you want to see the notes and the links, some of the resources we talked about in that conversation, head over to constructionleadingedge.com/059 for episode 59, and you'll be able to find that information there. Also, don't forget, if you're a construction business owner and you're ready to take your business to the next level, go find out how the ACLC can help you do that, how joining as an advanced construction leadership community member will help you get there. All the details are over at constructionleadingedge.com/community. My name is Todd DeWalt. Hope this helps you. Talk to you next time. Thanks for listening.